Why does the first rep of my deadlift set feel so much harder than the rest of the set? What's up, guys? Coach Tony from Bonvec Strength, and I'm going to answer a common deadlift question, something that we see all the time with our lifters, and that's the first rep of a deadlift set is so much slower and so much harder than the remainder of a set. So if a person's, say, looking to do a hard set of 5, that first rep almost looks like a 1 rep max, but then they're able to get out 2, 3, 4, 5 reps total much easier than the first rep of the set. So the reason for that is usually because of a lack of tension put into the bar and then a lack of tension created within the lifter's own body for that first rep. Then once they do that first rep, they develop the tension that they need to move the bar quickly, and then they're able to maintain that tension throughout the rest of the set. So if you've watched any of our stuff, you've heard me say a million times, talk about taking the slack out of the bar. So we have to use our lats to pre-bend the bar so that when we go to lift the bar, it pops right off the ground. There's no delay in the bar coming off the ground. So especially with a deadlift bar, there's a good amount of flex to that bar. And if you listen, you can hear the bar click as the edge of the bar hits the inside of the plates. So I do that by bending the bar with straight arms using my lats, the strongest muscle of my upper body. So I grab the bar, I take the slack out, and then when I go to lift it, that bar should come right off the ground. Versus if I don't bend the bar, what's going to happen is there's going to be a delay. I'm going to start to lift the bar is going to click, it's going to kind of grind a little bit, and there's going to be that delay. So I need to work really hard on creating that tension into the bar itself so there's not that delay as the bar comes off the ground. Secondly, within my own body, I have to create tension in my hamstrings. That's probably the biggest thing that holds people back from being fast off the ground, is if they're just not creating that internal tension through their hamstrings. And that has a lot to do with the height of your hips and the position of your pelvis. Now, if you sit your butt too low on your deadlift, so you try to sit your butt down real low and try to kind of squat the bar, the lower I squat, the less tension I can develop in my hamstrings. Now, what do I mean by tension? I mean like a tense feeling somewhere in the muscle belly of my hamstrings. So typically when you squat, you don't feel your hamstrings because they're not changing length. Your hamstrings run from your hips down past your knee. So when you move at both joints, your hip and your knee, your hamstrings aren't changing length. However, when you go to touch your toes, so your hips move and your knees don't, you'll typically feel your hamstrings a lot. This is pretty much the most hamstring tension I can develop. Obviously, I don't want to deadlift like that, but it goes to show that less knee bend is more helpful for developing hamstring tension. So something you may consider is starting your deadlifts with a higher hip position. So instead of trying to squat down like so, I have a little bit of knee bend. I tilt my pelvis forward by arching my lower back a little bit. Not something we would want to do while squatting, but while deadlifting is probably beneficial. And then I push my hips back so then I can feel the middle of my hamstrings really load up. And what I'm kind of doing is I'm kind of like compressing them like springs so they load up so that when I go to lift, they can help me extend my hips, because that's what our hamstrings do in the deadlift. So when I have my hips right here, I feel my hamstrings a ton. Then once I take the slack out of the bar, all I've got to do is drop my hips just enough to touch my shins to the bar. And you can see as I do that, that bar starts to hover off the ground. I'm applying so much tension into the bar and so much tension within my own body that the bar just wants to float off the ground. So if I do that with heavier weight, it should help me break the floor a little bit faster. So creating all that tension into the bar within my own body at the start of the lift. And then, of course, you got to maintain it throughout the entire set. That's where a lot of lifters typically learn what that tension should feel like, because even if I don't do a good job with it on my first rep, not enough tension into the bar, not enough tension within my body, so it's grind, 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 grind. Once I'm here, okay, I have to get my whole body tight to stay from falling over, so then I can kind of keep it as I go down, so people naturally will be able to maintain it. And then that next rep is really fast. What we got to do is make it so our first rep feels like the same amount of tension as what I need to control the bar on the way down. So if the first rep of your deadlift set feels like death, feels super slow, try to create more tension, try to find a higher hip position so you can break that bar off the ground a little more rapidly.